Typically, when we're looking at business losses, there is a very bottom line to this whole analysis, and that is lost profits. And whether we look at that as an ongoing business that has lost a segment of its operation, and therefore we're looking at that incremental profit, that gross profit, or whether we're looking at a business that has been decimated and no longer is in business, and therefore we have to look beyond perhaps at the net profit. The key to any analysis of lost profits centers on these two components: change in sales or revenues and the change in cost. And of course, these are not mutually exclusive. You know, a very double-edged sword in all of this. And particularly as we think about, someone mentioned the restaurant industry here, Bob did, you know, the restaurant industry has really been hurt by this recession, as we all know. And part of that has produced a situation where restaurants are tempting people back into their restaurants with deals. A restaurant down in Central Florida where I live rolled prices back to 1995. And this is a pretty fancy upscale restaurant, and you can go in and get oysters Rockefeller, let's talk about oysters, for $3. And that has worked for them. They've begun to build an interest in their restaurant. Now all of a sudden, they have just started getting people back in the restaurant, and the cost of those oysters for that $3 oysters Rockefeller is gone up 30 to maybe even 50% in certain cases. And so clearly there's a double-edged sword here. I want to look at the change of sales slide. Next slide, please. Because what we have to recognize is that there, from the standpoint of whether you're a producer, as I have indicated here, such as the fishing, shrimping, any agricultural community, you're going to be looking at the drop in output, and you need to be prepared at some point to document that drop in output. You know, what are the numbers? What are the real numbers? Forget the prices just for the moment. What are the actual drop, actual decrease in numbers? We talked about, Bob mentioned the Ecuadorian shrimp cases that we have been working on now for several years with them. And, you know, one of the things that they noticed very early on was that they weren't getting the same numbers. They weren't bringing the same numbers to maturity, and the ones they were bringing to maturity were much smaller. Over the same period of time, the size of the output had dropped. So when we talk about this from the production aspect of these claims, quantitative evidence, yield, size, time involved to bring to maturity are all crucial elements. And obviously price as well. One of the, again, double-edged aspects of that is that, unfortunately, if you produce smaller shrimp or oysters or whatever, you're going to receive less per pound. And so you find that that affects you in a number of different ways.